All right, the third one, internal consistency, also known as Cronbach's alpha. So your internal consistency reliability coefficient is also known as Cronbach's alpha. So let's take a look at these three tables here. First one, case processing summary. This is just telling us how many people are in our sample and how many people in our sample were actually valid cases that were included in this analysis. In this case, we see we have 12 total people in our sample, and of those 12, all of them are included in this analysis, 12 valid. Now let's look here at this second table, reliability statistics. We have three different columns, Cronbach's alpha based on standardized items, and the number of items. Don't worry about this middle one. You want to focus in on Cronbach's alpha and the number of items. And then we have our item total statistics. I'll get to that in just a moment. So let's step back and think about internal consistency. What is this reliability measure all about? So the FIQR, this is the article that you will find published by Bennett et al. In 2009. You'll find the article on titanium. But the FIQR is a measure of how much does somebody's fibromyalgia impact their life. Revised Fibromyalgia Impact Questionnaire is what the acronym stands for. And this questionnaire looks at three different domains. It looks at functionality in terms of how well does somebody function with their fibromyalgia, how much does the fibromyalgia impact their overall life, and how bad, what is the symptom severity related to the fibromyalgia. So the one that we're going to use here, the example here, is the function subscale. The questionnaire has 9 items that make up function. Difficulty brushing and combing your hair, difficulty walking continuously for 20 minutes, so on and so forth, as we can see here in the second or in this last table. The idea behind internal consistency is we want to know whether or not, or how well rather, these 9 items together measure function. Do all 9 of these items equally measure function together, or should we take some of these out? We have this idea. So we have this term that at least I like to use called real estate, questionnaire real estate. Let's say, for an example, you are a research participant. Would you want to participate in a research study if you knew that you had to sit and fill out paperwork for an hour versus 5 hours? Which research study would you be willing to participate in? I'm willing to bet you probably said the 1-hour research study compared to having to sit there and fill out paperwork for 5 hours, right? Well, if you think about that, do you think the 1-hour research study or the 5-hour research study is going to have more questions on it? Most likely the 5-hour research study, which is why it's probably going to take you 5 hours to complete, because it's probably going to be so many questions and questionnaires for you to complete. So thinking about that and knowing that, you wouldn't want to sit there and fill out a bunch of questions. As a researcher, when you're developing questionnaires, developing measurement tools, you want to be mindful of that. So the less questions you have to burden your research participants, the better and more likely they're going to participate. But at the same time, you don't want to compromise what it is you're trying to measure and study by saying, okay, well, here's 5 questions because you'll be out of here in 2 minutes. Instead of saying, okay, well, here are 200 questions from different types of questionnaires. It's going to take you about an hour or so. But it's really going to be able to allow me to understand much more about what you're going through. So thinking about that, we have these 9 items that measure function. When we're looking at Cronbach's alpha, our internal consistency reliability coefficient, we see with all of these 9 items, our Cronbach's alpha is 0.917. And when we're looking at the item total statistics table, don't worry about all these other 4 columns. All you really want to worry about is the item itself in this column, and the last column, Cronbach's alpha if this item is deleted. We want our reliability coefficient, Cronbach's alpha, to be as close to +1 as possible. The bigger the number, the more reliable. In this case, with all 9 items, our Cronbach's alpha is currently 0.917. So looking at our first item, difficulty brushing or combing your hair. If we deleted this item from the questionnaire so much that we'll have 8 items left, our Cronbach's alpha will move from 0.917 to 0.916. Do we want to delete this item, knowing that we want our Cronbach's alpha to be as large and as close to +1 as possible? Yes or no? Do we want to delete this? Hopefully you said no. With the 9 items, we have Cronbach's alpha equal to 0.917. If we deleted difficulty brushing or combing your hair, the 8 items left over would mean that we have a Cronbach's alpha of 0.916, which is smaller than 0.917, which means it is less reliable than with 9 items. So when we're thinking about internal consistency, we want to look at Cronbach's alpha with all of the items and look to see if there are any other items that if we deleted them would increase our Cronbach's alpha. So take a moment and see if you can figure out, of these 9 items, do we want to delete any of these 9 items so that our Cronbach's alpha is increased so much that our internal consistency, reliability is established? Go ahead and pause this, take a look at this table, and see if you can find an answer. Okay, so did you find anything? Did you see any item that we would want to delete so that our Cronbach's alpha is bigger? How about this one? Difficulty is sitting in a chair for 45 minutes. If we deleted this item, our Cronbach's alpha would increase from 0.917 to 0.925. So, knowing this, among these 12 individuals, instead of having them answer instead of them having to answer 9 questions for function, we could have had them answer 8 questions. And that would have been a better measure of function than if we had them answer 9 items. So it's a win-win situation. Not only do they have to answer less questions, but we even have a better measure, more internal consistency in terms of these 8 items without difficulty sitting in the chair for 45 minutes as a better measure of function, a more reliable measure of function. Here's another example. If you downloaded the example on titanium for reliability and internal consistency example, you'll see on the second page a questionnaire. This questionnaire is a questionnaire that I used at UCLA when I did research a couple of years ago. And in this research study, we wanted to look at the behaviors and wanted to see whether or not working with organizations, working with churches and civic groups, whether or not these organizations and their members can be influenced to get screened for colorectal cancer. This was among the Filipino American population, which there are high rates of non-screening. Well, there are high rates of deaths from colorectal cancer, but low screening rates. So we want to increase the Filipino American population to go get screened because we see that many of them are dying. And so one of the things that we did is we worked with churches and different organizations to train their members to then talk to their other members to influence them and get them to get screened. And so one of the things that we did is, by working with these organizations, we wanted to look and really measure and understand these organizations better. And so one of the things we did is we used this questionnaire here. We have 16 different items. All of these items measured different types of things. Here on the red, all of these items measure clan. So very personal place, encourages sense of family, held together by loyalty and trust, care and support. So if you look at the questionnaire, the full page questionnaire, you'll see that in red, all four of these items, if we looked at the answers for all four of these items, these measure the clan of the organization. If you looked at all the different other ones, if you looked at all the B's, all the C's, all the D's, they would measure hierarchy, it would measure autonomy of the organization. So these different questions, these different items in this entire questionnaire measure different things. There are different subscales, different domains. And so the one that we're going to look at is the 4 questions that measure clan. So how many individuals are included in this analysis? 54. How many of them were excluded? None of them. How many items are included in internal consistency analysis here? Well, we see we have number of items 4, all 4 of these questions. And we have a Cronbach's alpha, an internal consistency reliability coefficient, equal to 0.800. Take a look at the item total statistics table and see if there are any items that we want to delete so that we can establish better internal consistency. Pause the video, see if you can get an answer. All right, so knowing with these 4 items, measuring clan, and a Cronbach's alpha of 0.800, would we want to delete any items? Yes, we would. We'd want to delete personal place. Because if we do, we see that Cronbach's alpha will increase from 0.800 to 0.828. So let's run the analysis, and we get something like this. So after removing personal place, we see we have the same 54 individuals, but now we have our Cronbach's alpha of 0.828 with our 3 items. Notice those 3 items are sense of family, loyalty, care and support. We do not see personal place because we took it out. And when we took it out, we in fact see our Cronbach's alpha went up from 0.800 to 0.828. So we can conclude that the 3 items above, loyalty, care and support, sense of family, make up the clan culture with the Cronbach's alpha 0.828, demonstrating good internal consistency when we take out personal place. And we'll talk about how do we know it's good, or how do we know that there is internal consistency. We'll talk about what those thresholds are.